Yo, what is going on, everybody? Today we have an amazing and exciting topic to talk about. So we just kind of just want to dive right into it. I'm Nate the Great,
Todd
GinJeriel.
Webb. Todd Webb.
and Shang-Chi, a Legend of the Ten Rings. Yeah, we seen it.
Seen it.
So welcome back, everybody, to another episode of We Seen It. Again, as the title suggests, we're going to be talking about Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. This is Marvel's first solo Asian movie, and the first time we actually get to see the character of Shang-Chi on the big screen. So Disney had a pretty heavy burden to bring this character in and execute it right. So we're going to be talking about how well they executed that, basically. So let's dive right into it. All right. So the first question I kind of want to basically ask you guys, just a general question. What are you guys' quick thoughts about the movie? When going in, what did you expect? What were you guys' quick thoughts? Let's start with GinJeriel.
Yeah, that's a good question. So honestly, I would have to say that I'm surprised. I'm surprised of how good it was. I'll say that. Because I came in with the preconceived notion that, I don't know, first phase forward, movie other than Black Widow, that's on the big screen of MCU. I was like, I don't know. I had, some doubts, but it surpassed my expectations. Definitely.
No, seriously. What about you, Todd?
It definitely met my expectations and exceeded them. I knew the fight choreography was going to be great,
Yeah.
but it was a lot better than what I was expecting. And yeah, my quick thoughts. Yeah, it was a great film. Great film.
Yeah. I think it going in, I didn't really have super high expectations. But I think it did exceed what was, I don't know. I went in not really expecting too much, but it really did exceed what I was like, wow, I think for me, it was really the fight scenes for me and the action in this movie is something it felt original and fresh to me that I haven't really seen in the MCU before. And I was like, this, especially that first fight scene, I was like, yeah, this is gonna be a really, really good movie, and it was really good.
Yeah.
So those are just some of my quick thoughts. I thought it was great overall. So let's kind of just dive right into the storyline of this movie, right? This is the MCU's adaptation of Shang-Chi, which is, of course, with every MCU movie, slightly different from the comic books, but nonetheless, still the character. How do you think they executed the storyline in accordance to the comics? And did you think that this felt more like an MCU movie, or what are your thoughts about that? Let's start with the Holy Shinobi.
Good question. I think this is one of those characters and properties where you can definitely take some liberties for its own benefit. Um, there's a lot of, and for being honest, there's a lot of racist stereotypes and a lot of stuff that could have been left in the dark with this character, which is good because that means that they can take as many liberties and make this character as empowering as they'd like. What I think this movie definitely did. I don't think this is not a character that you're gonna see a lot of people screaming about comic book accuracy or inaccuracy.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that I remember when Netflix was releasing their own Marvel properties with the Daredevil, Jessica Jones stuff. The Iron Fist came out, and there were a lot of complaints about why is this white guy trying to easily, like, because people who never heard of Iron Fist were complaining, why is this white guy goes to this mystical Asian country that we never see, number one, and then he's somehow the master of kung fu. We've seen this before. This is, why don't they make an Asian character instead? I saw a lot of people say, why don't they just make Iron Fist Asian instead? That was a whole movement on Twitter. I remember that very vividly. And there are some points to that. And then people brought up, well, Shang-Chi exists. I remember this back then. Shang-Chi exists. His whole thing is that he's a master of all martial arts. That's kind of his whole shtick. Comes from a very similar background. So those beats were definitely hit in the movie, I would say. I think that's really all you needed to capture was there's magic, and then there's kung fu, and then there's this realm of magical kung fu, and that's
Yeah.
where the Iron Fist and your Shang-Chi's live in that zone. So I think they did a great job, honestly, keeping that up. No one's going to be complaining about
Yeah,
because
not at all.
no one's read a Shang-Chi comic. I'm not saying no one has, but I mean
Right.
this current wave of MCU fans who are probably introduced to superheroes from the movies. I doubt it. Maybe now. I hope so. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on that.
That's good. My thoughts would be definitely to piggyback right off of what Todd said. I'm glad they had an Asian person casted as the role of Shang-Chi. Like I'm glad they did that. I'm glad they took that approach because again, like he said, Iron Fist, when it came out and they had a white guy playing an Asian, people were very concerned. But
Well,
I
he's not.
like
Well, he's not even Asian. He is. The story is about a white guy. He's rich and he crash lands in a
really.
mystical city. Yes. No. So that was the big misconception. I don't need to cut you off, but that was the
Huh.
big misconception. People were saying, "Well, why did they recast this white guy to play Iron Fist?" The Iron Fist is very much a white guy. That's his whole character. Is that he's like a rich, stuck-up white. He's a stone. He's like a Tony Stark type, and he crash lands in this city. He has to learn, humility and the way of the dragon. He fights a dragon. He gets his powers. He comes back to his rich city that's all gentrified, and now instead of being a rich person, he has to like fight with Luke Cage on the streets and be a hero for hire. That's the story. But people thought it wasn't. It's so Asian influenced. People thought that they just recasted some white guy for it.
Oh, okay.
That's to clear that up. That's
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. But I will say this. In terms of it being an MCU movie, I would say like the first hour, I would say I forgot that it was an MCU film. I did. The action was different, but the like you said, the martial arts, it was amazing. You could tell that they put so much detail and effort into making them look as realistic as possible, honestly. So for instance, for me, it was just like, man, this is actually an MCU film. And I smelled the freshness of Phase 4. I smelled like this is something new. They're taking a little bit of a slight direction into something new, and I'm liking it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent point because I talked with some people earlier, a while back, and after Phase 3 ended with Tony's death and whatnot, and Thanos, whatever, people were saying I'm not really that excited for Phase 4 because Tony's dead and you really can't do that much, and I don't think that there's anything good that can happen. And I was like, you know what? I don't think that's true because Disney and Marvel, they don't miss. So I was like, I'm not gonna say anything. I just want to see what they come out with. And so far, like their movies have been not only good but kind of better than what they have been doing in the past. And this Shang-Chi movie, I was like kind of like what GinJeriel was saying, I was like, this is something super fresh. It was like,
Yeah.
I was like you said, at first it didn't seem like a MCU movie. The first 2 acts, it just seemed like its own standalone. If you ever are familiar with some of the movies like Ip Man or anything with like Bruce Lee or The Way of the Dragon, things like that, like it kind of felt like it was headed in that realm. It was really grounded. If I was to compare this movie to any other MCU movie, it would be kind of bordering the lines between Black Panther and the Winter Soldier. And I say the Winter Soldier because the Winter Soldier seems so fresh. It didn't really seem like a Captain America movie. It seemed like a spy movie. It seemed like a really grounded, like action type of gadget type thing. So when this movie came out, the first 2 acts, I was like, this is incredibly fresh. And it's so good to see something new and fresh in the MCU. They didn't really bring in a whole lot of other characters from the MCU, so they did focus on Shang-Chi, which I'm really glad they did. And so I really, really enjoyed that part or that aspect of the entire movie, which leads me into my third question or third point. How did you all feel about the third act of the movie? Now, I don't really want to spoil it, so as best you can without any spoilers, how did you all feel about the third act of the movie in comparison to the first couple acts of the movie?
You can go first, Jerome.
Well, I just kind of want to get clarification on the third act without, spoiling it. Are you talking about?
So okay, like the first act would be like the introduction of the character, and then that big moment where this movie gets into high gear.
Okay.
The second act would be like, we know
Origin
where
story.
we're going. We gotta go
Okay.
here. We gotta go there. The third act is the final showdown and where everything wraps up. That's kind of
okay.
the act
Okay.
structure is broken down.
Yeah.
Got it. So, I did like a lot of scenes from the third act, is I guess what we're calling it. I will say that I kind of wanted it to veer more so in terms of, like for instance, the first and second act had a lot of the martial arts going on, martial arts fighting, and then towards like the end, we kind of veer off to, without spoiling it, it's more magical, guess. Like it's more, I don't like more spirit, like, you know what I mean? And it works. It does work, but I kind of wish they would have added more of that, the fighting style, into the final act. You know what I mean? And I kind of wanted it to be more like him versus his father as like the main thing. I guess that's just my personal take. But it was still really good overall.
Okay, so let's just say this. The trailer did not reveal a lot of the movie. I'm gonna just say that. So when I first saw the trailer, I was like, wow, this is gonna be one movie. And then going in to see the movie, it almost seemed like an entirely different movie. They left out a lot of stuff, which I'm really glad, because it's like, it let me going in with surprises. I was really surprised seeing things. I was like, wow, I was not expecting this. But kind of on the grounds of what you were saying, it did take a turn from what I anticipated in the movie, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But it's just, I going in with the expectation that I wanted in terms of like a martial art movie, Asian movie, fighting movie. It took a turn from that, and it just kind of took me off guard. Everything, however, in the movie, most of the shots and all the colors, everything was beautiful, especially the third act. But again, to me, it almost felt slightly like a different film towards the end. It was like we were here at one point, but now we're like this entirely different movie in different environment. So that's what I had to say about it. Again, it was not bad by any means, but because I wasn't expecting that, it's just, I don't know. It just, so let's hear your thoughts, Todd.
If you want to watch a, martial arts movie with no magic, the Ip Man trilogy is right there.
That's true.
Like, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon is right there. The Raid is right there. They made 2 of them. If you want to go watch The Last Samurai, you can. These movies already exist. And you know what? All of those movies have blood and guts and excessive violence and decapitation in all of them. This is a Marvel Disney movie. Okay. In the MCU. We don't do that. It's not for a PG-13 rating. So yeah, it makes sense, like how the lack of extreme violence, because if like the physicality and the skill of all of them, it definitely could have went there. But like, yeah, you can't go there without also like, someone's blood will be spilt. If we're dealing with razor blades and all these moves sets and swords, like, we're not going there. So it's not even a cop out. It's just an easy way to maneuver around that, is introduce this magical element to it. If we're talking about just the third act is just fine. I love the third act. Third act was great. Third act picked up, like, I enjoyed the third act probably more than I enjoyed the first act, if I'm being 100% honest with you.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. Well, it's just because I say that because the pacing is so good in the movie. I never never bored, and they play off the idea that you've already seen Thor. You've already seen Thor 1. You've already seen Black Panther. You've already seen the Venom movies. It's a standard superhero like formula. You know, you have a guy. There's a call to action, and then it goes there, but it's just incredibly exciting. It's grounded in the first half, but then it goes all out in the third quarter of it, and that's 100% fine because that's what else? What do you come to see this movie for? We say like it doesn't feel like an MCU movie, but in that aspect, it's very much an MCU movie with these high flying spectacles that we see like towards the end. I think is 100% fine. This is exactly what I came to watch, more or less. I thought this was supposed to be a grounded, gritty, bare knuckle fight. That's not. Go watch anything. Those movies exist already. Like if that's what you want, go watch something else. It's there. This is an MCU film.
Yeah.
There's no blood in here.
Can I kind of clarify?
Yeah,
so
go ahead.
When I mean in terms of more martial arts, I wasn't saying like I wanted more grit and more violence. That's not what I was really saying. I was saying like I'm trying to say without spoiling it. So when they're fighting, I wish while doing magic,
you wish there was more hand-to-hand martial arts.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I will say that the third act definitely transformed it into a Marvel movie. Because like you were saying, Todd, it was like, yeah, you're right. Those movies already exist. And if Shang-Chi started like that and ended like that, it would be kind of like we already seen those type of martial art movies that are already good. And so I definitely think that the third act brought everything together. And at least when I was in the theater, I was like, there's a Marvel fingerprints. There it is, and like I said, I don't not like it. It wasn't that I have any like major issues with it at all. It was just something I wasn't expecting. It was especially based off the trailer, because nothing in that trailer revealed that was going to happen. So I was like, wow, this is
this is true. But I mean, like they introduced like the rings. It's like it's in the trailer. Like they do something.
Which is interesting, because the rings in the comics are actual like finger rings, and they all have their own different abilities. Here it's more like the Legend of the 10 bracelets, if you will. But but I still thought it was kind of cool how they brought it in.
Well, they already made they already did the Infinity Stones thing. I doubt they're gonna do that.
That's again. A good point.
Yeah, that's an excellent point.
Without spoiling it, they carry a significance for Marvel going forward, and it can't be a new batch of Infinity Stones.
Right.
I just now realized I'm gonna go back and watch Loki episode 1 and look in that drawer again to see if there's a bracelet in there. Like, y'all can keep talking. I'm gonna look this up right now.
No, that's good.
Go ahead. Before you go into your next segment, I was thinking, the 10 rings, it kind of goes back into previous Marvel films if you've been paying attention. So if you've seen the original Iron Man film, right? I did a little bit.
It's kind of a big spoiler, dog, but go for it.
Is it? Wait, is it a spoiler?
What do you mean? Yeah, it's a spoiler. That's like.
All right, never mind. I won't say it.
It's a spoiler, dog. Like,
I won't say it then.
I'll say it's a good. Well, you said though, like, go watch Iron Man 1 and 3.
Yeah.
And it'll definitely help you bridge some gaps for sure.
Yeah.
Which brings me to my next point. I hope that we're not going to spoil anything, but let's talk about the actual characters and the actors who played them. I think how you pronounce his name is Simu Liu. Yeah. Aquafina and Tony Long. Thank you. How do you all think they represented each of their characters? And we can talk about other characters as well, like his sister and whatnot, but how do you think they portrayed their characters? Do you think they executed it very well, or do you think it could have been better? What are your thoughts on their characters?
They all did a great job. Like, I was very impressed with Aquafina specifically. I was very impressed with her character. She wasn't it wasn't overbearing in terms of being the comedic relief character. Like, and she gets her own arc in the story, which I was surprised at. I thought she was just going to be like Korg in Thor 3,
Ragnarok?
just like
Yeah.
Thor Ragnarok. I just thought she was just gonna be making funny quips and breaking the tension. She never does. I mean, she has her own arc in the story and has something to actually do. It's definitely like bankrolled into the story and whatnot. So I was definitely impressed with that. Seemingly, he was awesome. I love that guy. Guy is just great. He's he just seems so excited to be in a Marvel movie, and I can just see that while him acting. He was fine. He just seemed he just seemed normal. Like, you were so used to these larger than life characters, and I hear people saying like on Twitter, just like, hey, he's not Tony Stark level, you know, man. Like, he's not
What?
like in terms of like just being the big charisma guy. Okay, great.
Yeah,
He's a different person. They could have played his character a lot of different ways. He could have been super serious, no nonsense, like, you know, sage mode type of character. But he's just a normal person. I feel like that was good for just like regular, like for good in terms of Asian representation. I think they went about it the right way. He's very much Chinese. Like, he speaks Chinese. He speaks Chinese with like Katie's Aquafina's character's family. You know, like, it's very much present without overdoing it in terms of his character. He doesn't speak with a broken English accent. This is an Asian American character playing an Asian American. I appreciate that. That's my thoughts on that. He was great, and Tony Leung was great. Dude's a goat. He's been in all the movies. Very talented actor, very good acting, you know. We wasn't too fond of his character though. He was a very sympathetic villain. I'll give him that. I definitely never did anything that I was like, oh, he's evil.
I was just about to ask how you thought about him as a villain. Yeah.
Oh, he just is literally just like misguided.
Sure.
Yeah. So I think everything he did for the most part was justified. Not for the most part, not justified, but like I can understand why he wasn't on like no genocidal, you know, kill half the people in the universe type beat.
So we've seen a misguided villain in the MCU before with Killmonger. Do you think that his misguidance was different or more understandable?
I've heard these Killmonger comparisons because people just can't stand to let a movie be great on its own. For whatever reason, this is different. It's a different character. He's saying something different here. This is this character. Listen, I'll say this. This Winwoo, which is Tony Leung's character, this dude respects women. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
He's doing it for love. Okay. Killmonger killed like 8 women in like 30 minutes of runtime, and we don't ever talk about that. Killed his girlfriend, killed that grandma who was like playing in the heart-shaped herbs, killed Dora Milaje. Listen, like, let's get our priorities straight.
You're right. Hey, you speaking facts, man. You're right.
Like, yeah. No, this character, like, he's after it for love, in the pursuit of love and getting something back that he lost. And I can understand that. And I sympathize for that. Even though you know up front this is kind of a misguided situation, I'm much more sympathetic because his motivations are a lot simpler than like if we're doing Killmonger, then the liberation of Black people from Africa, but we're gonna take it out of Wakanda, and our way of going about that is to then recolonize who colonized us. It's way more complex, and there's way more holes in that than just my wife. Something happened to my wife. I want to go save my wife. I think I can save my wife. I love my wife. That's
yeah. No, and I totally agree. Todd's definitely right on that. It's kind of hard to compare the two between Killmonger and the Mandarin. So I mean, it's kind of an interesting scenario. I will say, back to the characters, I definitely think that the characters that were acting for these roles, they definitely did an amazing job. Like he said, Aquafina was played as the comic relief for the movie. She wasn't too overbearing like you've seen in other, not even just MCU films, any films. Sometimes they have the comic relief person doing a little bit too much comic relief, trying too hard. I don't think Aquafina tried too hard in this film. That's why it worked.
Yeah.
I do like the villain. Like we said, he's more sympathetic. He's more relatable. I think that's the word. I feel like when you have villains that are relatable, then it's easier for you to enjoy them. Like they're not just a villain. A lot of times you have movies, whether it be Marvel or DC or just any movie. Sometimes we have the hero and we're like, okay, we got the hero, so we got to hurry up and make a villain. And the villain is just, kind of thrown together. It's not like that with this. With this, it's well thought out. He's a relatable character. You can sympathize with him at times. You can honestly side on his side at times, And so I think that interesting dynamic of a villain, when you make a villain that's relatable and a hero that's relatable, then it's destined to be a good film.
Yeah. When I first saw that he was going to be the villain in the movie, the first couple acts kind of set him up as kind of like your typical cliche villain. At least that's what I thought going in. I was like, okay, he's a cliche villain and he's going to have to be stopped. But when they started diving into his character a little bit more and explaining why he did what he did, I was like, man, I mean, I feel like anybody would do what he's doing, especially, the different things that was going on.
Yeah.
I was like, man, I can see where he's coming from and I can see why he would feel this way. And like you said, that kind of makes a villain, makes or breaks a villain, honestly, because if you can't relate to that villain, it's just kind of like you're, just throwaway. You can just whatever. But the moment you can sympathize with both the protagonist and antagonist, you've got something going for you. You got a movie that's unique, and that's why I loved his character, Tony Lung, Tony Lung. Yeah. And as far as Aquafina goes, you guys both said it. She did an excellent job providing the comic relief. She did not do anything overly over the top where it's like, okay, you're doing too much. Okay, that wasn't funny. At least for me, most if not all the jokes landed for me. I had a few laughs here and there, chuckles here and there. It was really, really good seeing her on screen. And I really think Aquafina's character and Simu's character had they had really, first off, they had good chemistry together as actors, but even as characters, I thought their chemistry was really, really good. So that also made for a good film, because you can tell sometimes when the chemistry isn't there. It's like it's like there's a lot of tension, but here they flowed off of each other. It was nearly flawless, their characters together, how they bounced off each other. So I really liked it. And I know we didn't talk about it, but the sister, I can't remember who played her, but can't remember her name, but the
Highling,
yeah, she played like Jaelong, that's her name or something, but she also did a really good job as well. I like what they did, and I saw another review talking about this, and I agree. Her character, when they first introduced her, was always someone who lived in the shadows, and even when she was introduced into the movie, she was still living in Shang-Chi's shadow, even when she was together with him. But it wasn't until, later on in the movie where they kind of brought her out a little bit more. And I really thought they did a great job on showing that, on how she was always in the shadow until she basically wasn't anymore. And I thought she did a really good job playing her character as well.
That's good.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think. Out of all the movies that Marvel has done, this is probably the least advertised movie. Well, except for probably Spider-Man: Far From Home, or Spider-Man. Or No Way Home. I'm sorry, Spider-Man: No Way Home. This is probably the least advertised movie. But yet it did so well in the box office. I mean, it's crushing the box office as we speak. As a matter of fact, it's doing so well that companies like Sony and even Marvel's other projects, they're starting to keep the same date that they had instead of postponing it. So my question is, do you think Marvel is gonna keep this trend of the lack of advertisement? Have they built their name to where less is more?
I'm iffy on that idea. I'm rather iffy on that idea because they haven't given any reason why they actually did not advertise this movie as well. And after seeing it, I don't see why you wouldn't. But
Yeah.
Black Widow got a lot of press with that one. The issues about that movie were just like, the whole theater date to
Mm-hmm.
streaming ratio
Yeah,
of
yeah.
time. But that movie got a lot of press. We got a lot of advertisement, and we all know that No Way Home isn't getting advertisement because of like plot related things. So it's just incredibly questionable how a movie with a ethnically diverse lead who could have used as much promotion as possible wasn't getting as much promotion as the movies that came out this year before and after it. I think is just incredibly questionable because the people who were advertising this movie was Simu Liu himself. He
Yeah.
do everything,
That's true.
for the entire year. It's just like promoting himself because it's like who else is gonna do it?
Yeah.
Marvel should be. I just think that's incredibly questionable on Marvel's part. They said that this movie was supposed to be an experiment to see how they'd
Mm-hmm.
how people would show up in movie theaters. I just think that's just
Yeah.
something about that rubbed me the wrong way. I just feel like
Mhm.
that's done in bad faith because it's like this is the first movie of its kind, and we're gonna put all the odds against it. Because if it flopped, they're not gonna make another movie like this. So they're like, oh,
Yeah.
well, we did it. People don't like Asian people clearly, so we're not gonna do another one. Or like, well, Black Widow. Oh, well, female led superhero movies didn't do well, so we're just not gonna do another one for a while. It's like those movies bank on those box office numbers to prove because that's why Black Panther did so well. It really is open. It's gonna open up the door for more
That's true.
movies of color. If Black Panther flopped, then I guarantee you there would be less and less talks about more Black, brown, Asian leads in the conversation, but the money talks. So I don't understand why you jeopardize it unintentionally. That's just my thoughts on that. Without saying what I want to say, that's yeah.
Well, my thoughts are kind of similar to what you're saying. So I feel like their mindset, they were kind of putting all their time and energy into advertising for the Eternals. I think that's where their mind really, their focus is really at. And like you said, I think they just made this movie to see, how is it going to react in the box office? Can we do these type of movies in the future? And of course, I know that they made the movie also because movies coming forward will definitely reference this movie. But I'm saying in the way they did it, definitely, like, I feel like a lot of their time, focus, and energy was on the Eternals. And this is kind of like one of those experimental projects, like you said, and to just see how it would how people would react in the box office. Now, luckily, it did great. Luckily, it did draw that attention that they needed, and a lot of people love the film, including myself. But I understand what you're saying, X. Like, I don't think it's right to do that with that going in with that mindset, like barely advertised for a film. Literally, like you said, the lead cast member, what's his name again?
Simu Liu.
Yeah, Simu. Yeah, he's literally tweeting. He's trying to get the movie out and everything. But yeah, I totally agree with you what you're saying. Definitely.
Yeah, I actually concur with both of you guys. I do think that I feel like this movie was gypped from its opportunity to be advertised the way it should have been. And like you said, luckily it did do very well. It's probably one of my top 5 MCU movies now, which is saying a lot for a movie that wasn't even advertised that much. But I do think that he deserved better, Simu Liu. And like you said, he shouldn't have to advertise for himself. I saw him going to London. I saw him advertising in New York. I saw him post on Twitter. I saw him doing this. And I was like, man, he's doing so much work just to get his movie out there. And not every other, but most and majority of the people in Marvel or their Marvel projects, they didn't have to do that much work.
That's
so
true.
it's really sad to kind of see that happen. But like you said, luckily it did really good. And hopefully Disney will start doing better going forward, and not experiment on things that are fresh and new just because it is fresh and new. Especially people of color. I mean, that come on. So, yeah.
I mean, it might. I mean, if you're gonna make a positive out of it, it may drive a new kind of marketing towards it, which is this self promotion for a movie you're leading in. I could definitely see more actors taking up this, especially newer actors in newer roles, just like constantly tweeting about, oh, I'm so excited to be in this movie. I'm so excited to be in this movie. If they're actually excited to be in the movie, right?
That's good.
That I think that in and of itself, seemingly you may have created a brand new marketing template for actors to self-promote themselves. Because he's the people's champ now. Man, love that guy. Dude's great. People on Twitter, absolutely, there's not one negative thing you can say about him, because he just seems like just a nice guy, and he just seems so excited to be in a Marvel flick, like anyone would be if they were in a Marvel flick. They had like the go ahead to tweet about it. So, there's a positive in there, I guess, but it's just incredibly questionable.
Yeah. All right, so we're gonna start wrapping it up soon, but is there anything you guys didn't like about the movie? I know we talked a lot of the positives. I know we talked about the action and the this and that and the characters. Is there any like one main thing that just didn't sit well with you, or you just didn't like this part of the movie?
That's a great question, honestly. Well, when I watched it in 3D. So I definitely like the 3D aspect of it. I mean, it's definitely a movie for 3D. The colors, the action, especially the action. We don't really talk about the action a lot in this interview, but let me tell you, the bus scene, incredible. That I'm just gonna say the trailer did not give it all the justice that it needed. But something that just didn't sit right with me, to be honest, I really don't know. I really don't have that answer of yet right now. I'm just thinking. I'm trying to think. Watching back at it. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. My bad. I was just gonna say. For me, there wasn't anything like super major. It was just. I'm gonna just say there are, for me, a little too much slow motion scenes in it that I felt cut the pacing of the fight scenes. And again, the fight scenes were spectacular. We didn't really talk about it a lot, but the fight scenes probably really made this movie. I was like, wow, like this kind of fighting is what I love to see. I love mixed martial arts. It was amazing. But there were some slow motion scenes where I felt took away from the pacing of it. And I understand that, what they were trying to do, and the slow motion was amazing, but sometimes I felt like, okay, that was one too many slow motion scenes. That was one too many right then and there. So if I had to nitpick and say that there was one thing I really didn't like, it would be that, because it slowed down the pacing of the fighting for me.
That's good.
I have no complaints with this movie.
Really? No complaints at all. You thought it was just flawless.
That's, I mean, for what it was going for what it's executing, like, it's a good movie. Like, these people, like, we haven't talked at all about visual effects, but that's also incredible in this movie. And it does both visual effects and martial arts incredible in this movie.
Yeah.
Just know it's a very visual effects and martial arts heavy. It's not just like, I would say that maybe take Doctor Strange and take, I don't know, the choreographies, as everyone wants to compare it to Winter Soldier, right? You put those movies together,
and you guys
you get Shang-Chi. Yeah. And if you like the visual effects from there, it's just done better here, in my opinion. And you like well choreographed action scenes, like it's gonna be great. Like, you're gonna enjoy yourself. Like, special effects are amazing. There are things he's doing that, like, I feel like in any other studio or studio budget I would not buy, but I bought everything that he did. He's like, I can't even, without spoiling it, he's just in the third act. He just does. He there's a giant thing that happens, and I'm just like, in any other budget, this would not work. This
Right.
would be, I can see this is
You're right.
corny. This is like clearly fake. But like, I bought it. You buy it. You're engrossed in the story at that point. I don't have any general complaints about this.
It's good. Now, that's really true, guys. You're gonna have a really fun time watching this movie. I mean, it's really fun to sit through, really fun to watch, and it's just you're gonna enjoy yourself. You're gonna pretty much fanboy if you really just love that kind of stuff. You're gonna fanboy, fangirl. It's a really fun watch. Lastly, if we were to give this movie a popcorn rating, from 1 popcorn to 5 popcorns, what would you guys give this movie?
I would definitely give it a 4. A 4. 4 out of 5. Definitely.
I'll give it a 4.5 out of 5.
Yeah, I gotta agree. I think I would give it a good 4 as well. I know on my mini review I did on TikTok and Instagram, I rated the movie a 7, but I think I'm gonna bump those numbers up a little bit more after this discussion and give it probably an 8, 8.5, and probably a 4 popcorn. Because looking back, it actually was visually stunning. Choreography was amazing, acting amazing. It was a really solid, good film that Marvel did, and I'm really looking forward to the next few movies coming out in Phase 4 in general. So, any last questions, comments, or concerns? All right, guys, this has been really fun. Great talking to you guys. Again, if you guys have not seen Shang-Chi, The Legend of the Ten Rings, go do that. You're gonna have an amazing time. And we seen it on the Shareholders Podcast. We seen it, and now you can too. All right.